Oh my God, did she just slap her?
The slap cracked across my face so loud it silenced the entire ballroom. Glasses froze mid-air, champagne bubbles still rising like tiny prayers. The orchestra's violins died mid-note, leaving only the echo of skin meeting skin. 300 guests, senators, judges, old money elite, stared in absolute disbelief. My sister-in-law's hand still hovered in the air, trembling with rage, her perfectly manicured nails catching the chandelier light. Her face was twisted in fury, but there was something else there. Satisfaction. As if this moment had been planned, rehearsed, waited for. Red wine dripped down my cream dress like blood, each drop landing on Italian marble with a soft plip. My cheek burned with the sting, but the pain in my heart was infinitely worse. Because when I turned to my husband, the man who had promised to love, honor, and protect me, he didn't rush to my side. Instead, David stepped forward, but not toward me. He moved to shield her, his sister, the bride. Linda Whitaker, in all her ivory-gowned glory, suddenly looked very small behind my husband's protective stance, and in that crystalline moment, humiliation wrapped itself around me like chains, cold and unforgiving. But no one in that grand hall, not the politicians clutching their pearls, not the society wives whispering behind their fans, not even Linda herself, expected what would happen next, because the groom, Thomas Whitaker, was about to take the microphone, and his words would shatter every illusion, every lie, and every bond that had held this family together for generations. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted the most? What did it feel like? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And before we dive deeper, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The day had started like something out of a fairy tale. The Whitaker estate stretched across manicured grounds that whispered of old money and older secrets. Chandeliers dripped with crystals worth more than most people's cars. The air itself seemed perfumed with power and privilege. I had spent 3 hours getting ready, choosing each accessory carefully. My cream dress, a gift from David on our second anniversary, was elegant but understated. I wasn't trying to upstage anyone, I was just trying to belong. But belonging to the Whitaker family was like trying to join an exclusive club where the membership rules changed every time you thought you understood them. They tolerated me, at best. I was David's wife, and that gave me a seat at their table, but never quite the right to speak at it. Linda had been radiant that morning, floating through the estate in her couture gown, accepting compliments and air kisses from guests who traveled from 3 states to witness this union. The guest list read like a who's who of political and financial power. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a merger, a statement, a coronation. The ceremony itself had been flawless. Thomas, tall and distinguished in his custom tuxedo, had looked at Linda like she hung the moon. Their vows were poetry. Their kiss was perfection, and the applause was thunderous. But weddings aren't about the ceremony. They're about what happens when the cameras stop rolling and real life begins. The reception was in full swing when it happened. I had been standing near the champagne fountain, making polite conversation with Senator Morrison's wife about her latest charity gala, the kind of small talk that lubricates high society gatherings like oil on gears. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across walls lined with oil paintings of Whitaker ancestors. Each table was adorned with centerpieces that cost more than most people's monthly salary. White orchids flown in from Thailand, candles in hand-blown glass holders, silk ribbons that matched Linda's bouquet exactly. I watched the guests move through their choreographed social dance. The men clustered around the bar, discussing market fluctuations and political campaigns. The women glided between tables like beautiful sharks, their designer gowns rustling secrets and scandals in their wake. That's when I noticed Linda approaching, her cathedral train rustling across the marble like a warning whisper. She moved with the calculated grace of a predator who had spotted weakness. Her smile was radiant, the kind that photographers capture for society magazines, but her eyes were cold, Arctic cold. Behind her, like ladies in waiting, followed two of her sorority sisters from Yale. They flanked her at the perfect distance, close enough to witness, far enough to maintain plausible deniability. "Maggie," she said, her voice pitched just right, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, soft enough to seem intimate. "How bold of you to wear cream to my wedding." The words hit me like ice water. Around us, conversations began to slow, heads turning subtly in our direction like flowers following the sun. I felt the familiar heat of embarrassment creeping up my neck, that telltale flush that had betrayed me since childhood. "Linda, I started, but she raised one perfectly manicured hand, stopping me mid-sentence. "I specifically mentioned in the dress code. You did receive the dress code, didn't you? That light colors were reserved for the bridal party." Her voice was getting louder, more theatrical, as if she were delivering lines to an audience. But I suppose some people just don't understand boundaries. The senator's wife beside me stepped back, suddenly fascinated by her champagne flute. Other guests were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word, their conversations dying like candles in the wind. Judge Hamilton's wife whispered something to her husband behind her fan. A pharmaceutical heiress raised her eyebrows and nudged her companion. Even the waitstaff had slowed their movements, sensing drama in the air. "I'm sorry if there was any confusion," I managed, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "The invitation didn't specify." "Didn't specify?" Linda's laugh was like crystal breaking, sharp and dangerous. "Oh, Maggie, nothing about you is ever intentional, is it? You just stumble through life making messes for other people to clean up." Her sorority sisters exchanged glances, the kind of look that said they'd witnessed this performance before. One of them, a blonde named Bethany, who'd never spoken more than 3 words to me in 5 years, actually smiled. Not a kind smile, a hungry one. "I mean," Linda continued, her voice growing stronger as she sensed her audience growing, "look at how you met my brother. Wasn't that just another beautiful accident?" The ballroom was quieting now, conversations dying as more guests sensed drama brewing like a storm on the horizon. I could feel hundreds of eyes turning toward us, feel the weight of their attention like spotlights burning through my skin. The orchestra, sensing the shift in mood, had moved to softer pieces, ironic background music for what was becoming a very public execution. Senator Morrison himself had stopped mid-conversation to watch. Behind him, I caught sight of Thomas's business partner from New York, phone already in hand, probably texting his wife about the situation developing at the Whitaker wedding. "Linda, please," I whispered, trying to keep this from becoming the spectacle she clearly wanted it to be. "This is your wedding day. Don't let—" Ultra-realistic cinematic B-roll image of the most dramatic hook moment in a wedding scandal story. A furious bride in an elegant ivory lace gown with dark brown hair and a classic bun slapping her blonde sister-in-law, who wears a cream dress now stained with red wine, her face twisted in shock. Setting: a grand golden ballroom with chandeliers, polished marble floors, and stunned guests in tuxedos and gowns frozen in disbelief. He was deep in conversation with his father and Uncle Robert, the family patriarch who controlled the trust funds. They were probably discussing business. They always discussed business while his wife was being dismantled in public. "Look at you," Linda continued, her voice carrying clearly in the growing silence. Every word was calculated for maximum damage. "Shaking like a leaf. You've never belonged in this family and everyone knows it. David settled for you because he felt sorry for you. We all know it. We all see it." Each word was a carefully placed blade, designed to cut deep and leave scars, and they were working. I felt myself shrinking, diminishing under her assault like a flower in winter. "You're a mediocre woman who married above her station and has been embarrassing us ever since." She paused for effect, letting her words sink in. "Your little teaching job, your thrift store furniture, the way you mispronounce French words on wine menus." The cruelty was breathtaking in its specificity. These weren't random insults. These were targeted strikes based on 5 years of observations, 5 years of cataloging my every misstep and vulnerability. But something inside me, maybe it was desperation, maybe it was dignity finally fighting back, finally found its voice. The words came out clear and strong, cutting through her monologue like a sword. I may not have been born into money, Linda, but I was raised with manners, which is apparently more than your family's wealth could buy you. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that cavernous ballroom. Linda's face went white, then red, then white again, like a neon sign flickering before it dies. I had crossed a line I didn't even know existed. In her world, you could attack someone's character, their background, their worth as a human being. But you never, ever questioned the family's breeding. That was sacred ground. Behind her, Bethany's mouth fell open. Other guests stood frozen, drinks halfway to their lips, processing what they had just witnessed. Someone, I think it was the pharmaceutical heiress, actually whispered, "Oh my God." Linda's hands were clenched into fists now, her perfect manicure lost in the white of her knuckles. For a moment I thought she might actually strike me. Then I realized she was going to. What would you have done in my shoes? Walked out, or stood your ground? Her hand moved before her brain caught up. The slap echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot, so sharp and sudden that even the servers stopped mid-step. Wine from her glass, she must have been holding it in her other hand, arced through the air in a perfect crimson ribbon before splashing across my dress. Gasps erupted from every corner of the room. A judge's wife actually screamed. Phone cameras started appearing like fireflies in the gathering dusk of my humiliation. The burn on my cheek was immediate and fierce, but nothing compared to the burn in my chest as I watched 300 guests process what they had just witnessed. Some looked shocked, others looked thrilled as if they had just been treated to the most expensive entertainment money could buy. And then came the worst moment of all. David appeared at my side, finally. But instead of checking on me, instead of demanding an explanation from his sister, he looked at me with something I had never seen in his eyes before. Contempt. "Enough, Maggie," he hissed, positioning himself between Linda and me. But he was facing me, protecting her from my presence, not protecting me from her violence. The betrayal was so complete, so unexpected, that I actually stumbled backward. The guests were having a field day. I heard whispers floating through the air like poison. She should have known better than to wear that color. Linda's just protecting her special day. Some people have no class. Did you see how she provoked her? A banker's wife nudged her husband and pointed at my stained dress. Two society matrons put their heads together, already crafting the version of this story they would tell at tomorrow's lunch. But not everyone was entertained. I caught sight of Thomas across the room, his face dark with something I couldn't quite read. A few guests looked genuinely horrified. An elderly man in a military dress uniform shook his head sadly. The room was dividing into camps before my eyes, those who saw entertainment and those who saw something darker. That's when the microphone screeched with feedback, cutting through the chaos like a sword. "Enough!" Thomas Whitaker's voice boomed across the ballroom with the authority of a man who had never had to raise his voice to command attention. The room fell silent so fast you could hear silk rustling. He stood at the head table, one hand gripping the microphone stand so tightly his knuckles were white. This wasn't the blissful Groom from an hour ago. This was a man who had seen something that disgusted him. Do you think Thomas was right to call them out in public? Or should he have handled it privately? "Linda." His voice was controlled, but every word carried the weight of judgment. "Do you think this marriage is a performance? Do you think slapping a woman, humiliating a guest in front of everyone, is how you want to begin your life as my wife?" Linda's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions: surprise, fear, anger, desperation. She reached for his arm with her free hand, her voice suddenly small and pleading. "Thomas, please. It was nothing. She provoked me." "Nothing." His voice rose, filling every corner of the massive room. 300 people witnessed it. They saw you assault a woman at your own wedding. They saw the kind of person you really are. The crowd was transfixed. This was better than any soap opera, and it was happening live in front of them. But Thomas wasn't finished. His gaze moved to David, and if looks could burn, my husband would have been ash. And you. His voice was quiet now, but somehow more dangerous. What kind of man protects cruelty instead of his wife? What kind of man stands with the aggressor instead of the victim? David's face was red, his jaw clenched, but he said nothing. His silence condemned him more thoroughly than any words could have. Thomas's hand moved to his ring finger, and the entire room held its breath. Slowly, deliberately, with the gravity of a judge delivering a verdict, he began to twist off his wedding band. "No," Linda whispered, then louder. "No, Thomas, you can't." But the ring was already sliding off his finger. He held it up for a moment, letting the light catch it, letting everyone see what was about to happen. "This marriage," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom, "ends tonight." The ring hit the marble floor with a sound like a death knell. I will not tie my future to a woman who believes cruelty is entertainment. I will not bind myself to a family that applauds when someone is humiliated and attacked. Linda's scream split the air like glass shattering. She lunged toward him, but he was already walking away, his broad shoulders cutting through the crowd of stunned guests. The next morning brought a silence so profound it felt like the world had stopped breathing. I woke to find David already gone, probably to his parents' house for damage control, and sunlight streaming through our bedroom windows with the cruel cheerfulness that only comes after your life has been turned upside down. My phone was buzzing like an angry wasp. 53 missed calls, hundreds of text messages, and notifications from social media platforms I'd forgotten I even had accounts on. The story had gone viral overnight. Someone had posted cell phone footage on TikTok with the caption, "Wedding drama, bride slaps sister-in-law, then groom cancels wedding." It had already been viewed 2.3 million times. The comments were a battlefield. Some defending me, others calling me names I won't repeat, still others analyzing the situation like it was a sociology case study. But it wasn't the strangers' opinions that made my hands shake as I scrolled. It was the text from my mother in Ohio. "Honey, Mrs. Henderson next door just called. She saw you on the news. Are you okay?" The news. I turned on the television with the kind of dread usually reserved for natural disasters. There it was on Channel 7's morning show. File footage of the Whitaker estate, a photo of Linda in her wedding dress, and then, God help me, a grainy screenshot of me with wine staining my cream dress, looking shell-shocked and lost. The wealthy Whitaker family is reeling this morning after what witnesses are calling an unprecedented scene at yesterday's wedding reception, the anchor was saying in that tone reporters use for celebrity scandals. Videos circulating on social media appear to show the bride physically assaulting a guest before the groom dramatically called off the marriage. They had reached out to the family for comment, she continued, but the Whitakers were unavailable. Translation: they were in full crisis management mode, probably with their team of lawyers and PR specialists crafting statements and considering lawsuits. My phone rang. "David." "Don't watch the news," were his first words. "Too late. My mother wants to see you. Today. She says—" He paused, and I could hear voices in the background, urgent, hushed discussions punctuated by his father's booming disapproval. "She says we need to present a united front." "A united front," I repeated slowly. "Is that what we're calling it when your family tries to rewrite history?" "Maggie, please. You don't understand the pressure we're under. The newspapers are calling. Business partners are asking questions. My father's golf club is buzzing with gossip." And there it was, the real concern. Not my humiliation, not the public assault I'd endured, not even the fact that his sister had revealed herself to be capable of violence when her ego was threatened. The real problem was that the family name was being dragged through tabloid headlines. "I need time to think," I told him. "We don't have time. The family meeting is at noon." Family meeting. as if I were an employee being called in for a performance review rather than the victim of their daughter's public breakdown. After I hung up, I made coffee with hands that wouldn't stop trembling and sat at our kitchen table, the thrift store furniture Linda had mocked, trying to process what my life had become overnight. I was now part of internet culture, a meme in the making, a story that would be retold and distorted until the truth became whatever version got the most clicks. But as I sat there in the morning light, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Maggie, this is Sarah Chen from the wedding planning company. I saw what happened last night and wanted you to know that what Linda did was inexcusable. I've been planning events for 15 years and I've never seen anything like it. If you need someone to verify what really happened, I have the whole thing on my phone. Stay strong." Then another. "Maggie, this is Robert Stevens. I was seated at table 12. I saw everything. That woman's behavior was disgusting, and your husband should be ashamed. You handled yourself with more class than anyone in that room." And another. "Hi, honey. This is Margaret Walsh, Judge Hamilton's wife. I've known the Whitakers for 30 years, and I want you to know that what happened last night was not your fault. Linda has always been troubled, but this crossed every line. You have allies." By 11 a.m., I had received 47 messages of support from wedding guests, vendors, and even complete strangers who had seen the videos online. They weren't all kind. Some were clearly just looking for gossip, but enough of them were genuine to make me realize something important. I wasn't alone, and I wasn't crazy. What Linda had done wasn't just inappropriate or rude or embarrassing, it was assault. And the fact that her family was more concerned with their reputation than with accountability was telling a story all its own. The days that followed brought headlines where wedding announcements should have been. The local paper ran the story under "Wedding Called Off After Dramatic Scene." Social media exploded with eyewitness accounts and grainy cell phone footage. David and I had our reckoning in the quiet of our kitchen, over coffee that grew cold as we talked. He apologized, genuinely, deeply. But apologies don't erase the moment when someone shows you who they really are. We agreed to counseling, to boundaries with his family, to a public apology to set the record straight. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Linda eventually apologized too in private, without an audience to perform for. It wasn't about redemption. It was about finally being honest. Thomas never married Linda, obviously. He handled the aftermath with grace, donating the wedding gifts to charity and issuing a statement that was dignified without being cruel. So this is the truth of that night. Sometimes it takes a public humiliation to reveal private truths. Sometimes it takes a stranger to defend you when your own family won't. And sometimes the most important moment of your life happens when you least expect it, in front of people you barely know. The slap that was meant to silence me ended up giving me my voice back. The humiliation that was meant to diminish me ended up showing me my worth. Would you have stayed to rebuild, or would you have left to begin again somewhere else? Your answer matters more than you know. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next video.